Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another installment of Flyera Gonna Flyer. We got a good one for you this week. We're going to be going over the week ahead, or the week prior, I should say. We're going to be giving our MVPs and underperforming players of the year, and we'll also be talking about the week ahead, and maybe even sprinkle a little bit of a trade talk if there's some time. Sit back and relax for another installment of Flyera Gonna Flyer. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. For the second time this episode, welcome to another installment of Flyera Gonna Flyer, our 21st installment of said show. We got a good one this week, everyone. Let me introduce to you to my three gracious co-hosts. Above me, joining us for the first time in a little bit, from the O&B Puck, Isaiah. How you doing today, bud?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Always good to have you, man. You're always welcome, as you know that. And also joining me to my top left, Mr. Jamey Baskow. How you doing tonight, my man?
Good, man. Aloha, mahalo. Feeling kind of festive, everyone. The Grinch. Got a Grinch hat going on. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. It's that time of year and feeling kind of Grinchy. We'll see what happens tonight with the Flyers game. But aloha. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy Hanukkah if you celebrate. It's a great time of year for everybody.
Gotta zoom into that awesome hat. What a beaut that is. How the Jamey stole Christmas tonight.
Hey, man, I stole it by going to the boat parade and then coming on the podcast.
That's a beaut. That's an absolute beaut. And last but not least, my other gracious co-host, Eric Martino, a.k.a. Filibuster 10. I can't point the right way. How you doing tonight, bud?
I'm doing great. Another day talking Flyers and making me more and more happy.
Honestly, I love it. Jamey's optimism is starting to spread to you a little bit, it seems like.
I'm a pretty optimistic person in general, but with Jamey's influence now, the sky's the limit, right?
Sky's the absolute limit. All right, but let's get right into it. We had a interesting week ahead. Good week for the Flyers. The team is really starting to find its game of recently. 7-2-2 in their last 11, a 2-0-1 week. We're going to jump right into this one, opening up with the game against Vegas. The only one of the three games they didn't win. Isaiah, since you're our guest here, let me ask you, what was your opinion of that Vegas game? Oh, looks like we got some mic issues. Oh, hold on.
Looks like
there we go. Nope, still mic issues.
Okay. That game was all about a transition to a better process, while at the same time running into a team that had the experience to manage the Flyers and their surges and kind of found their way back into the game. And you could say that the Flyers didn't get the goaltending they needed. That would be partially true. You could say that Vegas has that championship level experience. That also would be true. But I'm trying to take away a positive because of what is accrued later in other games and comparing to how they played in that game to what they've done prior to this point. So it was very disappointing to let that game. I think they had leads of 3-0 and 4-2, and you could just see Vegas. They were just mauling the Flyers and addressing some of the Flyers' weaknesses along the boards and some of the loose play that can happen, especially the neutral zone and things like that, using their size and experience. And they kind of negotiated their way out of a point with their play, and it was disappointing. But again, it augured well for what we've seen since then. So in the moment, I was disappointed. They kind of found a way to lose, and the narrative might be, yeah, that's what losing teams do. They lose games like that against more experienced teams. But then they kind of, took it from there, and then we'll go forward in, with the other games. But since then, with this game, particularly the Ranger game, they're showing that they're coming out of the, funk they were in from the opening part of the season. So I still think it was a net positive, all things considered.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So one of the things I want to bring up with this game is I looked at Vegas going into this. This is one of the things that wasn't talked about at all by, I felt like, the broadcast. This is Vegas' fourth game in 6 nights going into it, and they were at the tail end of a road trip. They were without Mark Stone. I think it was one of the major pieces they were without. Flyers jumped right down their throats. Had a fantastic first period, 2 goals in the first period, and then another one early in the third. Congrats to Emil Adrane getting his first NHL goal too in that game. That was awesome to see. But Vegas, as you just mentioned, Isaiah, with their championship pedigree, did not quit, did not give in. They started fighting back. A little bit had to do with the goaltending, and a little bit was the Flyers just got comfortable, I think, too. They weren't quite as aggressive as they were in the first 20 on so minutes. And once again, as me and Isaiah and Jamey and Eric have brought up multiple times, second periods continue to hamper this team. And they had a rough end to the second period. Now, mind you, Mitchkov did pop one in the second as well to make it 4-2. But I felt like the second period is when you really felt the momentum starting to shift again. Third period came along. Vegas ends up potting 2 to end up tying this game. And they had some chances. There was that one-timer opportunity that Mitchkov fed Morgan Frost on the right circle, and he just shot it wide with about 2.5 minutes to go. That was one I watched, and I almost threw up watching it live. That's just one that's going to make you lose sleep at night. Team played a valiant overtime. They outshot Vegas 8-0 in the overtime period. They were consistent. They had a lot of forecheck on them. Sanheim drew a penalty. Had another great one-timer bid as well that was stopped. But unfortunately, couldn't finish the job in the shootout. Really came down to this. A team had some opportunities, just couldn't finish. And it's a game that really stinks that they let a point go because it was a tired team. It was a very good team, but a tired one nonetheless at the end of a road trip. That I really hope that you could have thought, okay, maybe they're packing in and just accepting the L tonight. But either way, what it's led to going forward, the team has taken as a net positive, I believe, as well as Isaiah mentioned. And it's big. So we're going to lead into this a little more as the upcoming games continue. Jamey, what was your thoughts on this game?
I'm going to do a different spin. That game definitely got on my nerves. Happy in the same token because that was Morgan Frost's best game in a long time. He just looked dialed in. He probably should have had 3 or 4 goals, maybe even 5. But honestly, what got on my nerves is that the team still isn't ready for Matvei Mitchkov. They're just not. Players need to keep their sticks on the ice at all times. He's just throwing dimes. I mean, you look at I'm sorry to go to this now, but the Ranger game where he makes a pass in between his legs and the shot is high and wide. I mean, we've talked about it before that Maffei at this point should probably have about 30 points. I mean, he with the way he's passing, his elusive passing. I mean, players are just missing the net. It's just like the Morgan Frost, like you alluded to, for instance, where he shot it, wide. I literally don't know how he missed that at all. I mean, that was a perfect beauty. I think the only thing I could see is maybe it handcuffed him a bit, like at the bottom of his stick blade to where the shaft meets, and it was one of those, and he just ripped it the wrong way. But they're just not ready for Mitchkov yet, and you're seeing it. They just need it. What we're seeing is that they need more talent, regardless of how they're playing or what they do this season, to include if they make the playoffs. They definitely need more talent. They just need more top 6 talent, and it's becoming evident as each game wears on. So that's the spin that I had on, the Vegas game. To couple with that with Isaiah, they're just not experienced enough. You're seeing a more experienced team. Just the Flyers, in my opinion, got a little lax. They're not used to these big leads, 3-0, 4-0 leads. They're usually the team that's down 3 or 4 goals and then have to creep their way back into the game. So that was a lot of inexperience in this area, I think. Having a big lead, we see it in every sport. What happens? You get out to this big league, like in basketball, for instance, teams are up by like 22, 25 points at halftime and come out and they lose the game in the end. It's really not how you start, it's how you finish the game. And that's what the Flyers are starting to get used to. As the week wore on, obviously it got better, but they're just not ready for Michkov. They just need more talent, and that's becoming evident.
Well said. Honestly, those are very fair points, especially hammering the Michkov point here. Eric, how about you? What's your take on that game?
For me, that game, it showed a difference of a team that knows how to win and a team that's learning how to win.
Mm.
Because you saw it with, like, even down 3 goals or even down when they were down 4-2, like, Vegas never, like, even though we outplayed them, they never gave up. They were always in the game and they were always causing pressure, causing havoc. And that's teams that know how to win. That's what they do. They might not be having their best game. They might be tired from a long road trip, but they know how to close and they know how to finish a game off. And that's what the Flyers are lacking. And look, it's going to come with time, I think. Obviously, look, we're a very young team. We're like the 3rd or 4th youngest team in the league.
Yeah.
And now you minus Eric Johnson from that, and we're probably top 2, right? So, like, we're just learning. We're still learning how to win. Like, I find it was like little stupid mistakes that we made that cost us a couple goals. Like Fedotov, when he came out and played the puck and gave it right, like pretty much caused a turnover. I think that was the 3rd goal. And look, Helge Grans on the 4th goal. He couldn't clear it out of the zone. Tanner Pearson made a nice forecheck down onto Grans to force the turnover. And then, but then he had another chance to clear it out, and he did it again. So it's just young players learning how to win and learning how to close out games. And I think it'll come. Look, like, and Jamey's right too. We don't have the players to play with Michkov right now. Like, we have some good players, but like, he's an elite player that needs to play with other elite players, or at least a superstar. And that, again, it's our center depth is just not there to play with Michkov. We don't have that center. Morgan Frost maybe could have been that center, but it's clearly he's not.
Yeah.
Torrey is a great two-way center. He's a great matchup center, but he's not that guy to play with Michkov either. So that's until we actually address our top 6 issues, this is what we're gonna have to deal with. And we're just gonna have to learn as a group how to close these games out, and how to play.
Very fair point on that one. Especially you hammering it all down. I think we can all agree with that. The talent of the top 6 needs to improve, and especially it's down.
Oh, yeah.
We know Katori at this stage is probably at best a 2C, but more likely a 3C. And I think the same can be said about Morgan Frost. You're looking at a middle 6 guy at best there too. They don't have the true 1C. They need another center. Let's move on to the Nashville game. This game had a completely different shift from what we saw in Vegas. This game was very weird. Jamey, let me let you start this one off. Jamey, floor is yours. What was your take on that Nashville game?
My take was Coley. What a game he played. Because if Kolosov doesn't play the game the way he does and the Flyers don't steal a point, they were heavily outplayed. I mean, the Flyers outplayed Nashville at certain stretches of the game, but they were heavily outplayed throughout the entire game. It was sort of like a reverse of how Monday went to Wednesday went, right? So the Nashville got off to a great start, against the Flyers. Flip that. The Flyers got off to a great start against Vegas. It was the complete opposite effect. And then the Flyers then just stuck with it because of Kolosov. Kolosov really played well. He really showed me, okay, I can be a capable NHL goaltender. Because even to date, I was still his athleticism. He's more athletic than Ivan Fedotov. But that was the game that solidified, okay, I'm here. I'm making a case. And I was pretty amazed because I think the Flyers were a little flat that day. I don't know why. Maybe they were ready for Thanksgiving or something of that nature. But they stuck with it and won, somehow. So that was a team. That was a complete team effort there. I mean, it wasn't because of lack of effort. They were obviously trying. But it was just, I don't know. Nashville was just looked like that 2022 team, 23 team, maybe the latter, the team that was latter of last season, how they, in the second half of the season, just tore it up. And I think they made the playoffs. And that it was that type of team. that was on the ice. Not the team that's one of the worst teams in the NHL, that's for sure. But Kolosov played well, and the Flyers wound up with the victory, a key victory, a much-needed victory.
Good, very good points there. Kolosov, happy for the kid. He earned that game for sure. Isaiah, let me hear your opinion on this one.
Well, this was a very frustrating game to watch. From my perspective, they were getting their asses handed to them all night. They're on their back foot. And it's like, what the F am I watching here? I mean, they went toe-to-toe with Vegas, and we outlined what happened there with experience, lack of elite talent like Vegas has. I mean, look, Nashville's got some of those players, but they, you have to be a team, and they haven't come together as a team. Now's a great time to catch them. And everything, by every metric, they were getting slaughtered and should have been down by quite a lot, right? So I wasn't even crazy about the goals. The first goal that Kolosov gave up, he kind of put himself in a bad spot because he didn't track the puck well, and he was susceptible to that funky bounce. And then, even though it was a really good shot from Ryan O'Reilly, I thought, yeah, you got to cover the short side. But from there on in, I got to agree with Jamey. He kind of is taking a step in that game at establishing himself. And because of that, and I think the Flyers did a good job around them, because if you look at like the level of high danger chances later in the game, the Flyers are giving up a lot of chances, but they weren't really, the quality that would get them in trouble. So now their defensive structure is coming together, and they hung in there, they get a goal, not a quick goal, and then the fluke at the end, 2 flukes away. All you got to do with Saros is just tip pucks by him and it's over, So
Yeah.
they could have been doing that all night had they known. But listen, that kind of makes up for some of the fluky things. Like we were talking earlier about Frost not able to, hit that gaping net in the game prior. You know what? These are lucky plays. That's the nature. As long as you're out there trying, it's the nature of the game. If you stick with it, and as long as there's life in your team, that's the kind of victory you can get. And to get it on the road, it's a big deal. And it kind of made up. And this is why I felt a little bit better about what happened in Vegas. Yeah, they got a point there. They didn't deserve anything in that Nashville game, and they come home with 2.
Honestly, you said it pretty much perfectly with that. I don't know how the hell they managed 2 points. I messaged Jamey in our group chat afterwards, and I said to myself, how the hell did we end up winning that game? Because they got grossly outplayed top to bottom. But yeah, this game just was a weird one. They Scott Lawton's lone goal in the first period was even a weird shot. Like it looked like it just deflected off of somebody and then snuck in the short side. I don't even know how to explain that. The Ryan O'Reilly goal, I think he just shot that puck as hard as he could, and it just happened to find the short side, as you mentioned, Isaiah. And they just had no control in the offensive zone, it felt like, all game. Now, even though they were stuck in their own, you make a good point, Isaiah. They didn't really give up those high-quality bits. But it felt like at the same time, they just weren't finding any time to spend in the offensive zone. After the Flyers tied the game at 1, it felt like Nashville controlled the entire pace of the game until the third period with about maybe 5 minutes left. That's when the Flyers kind of found that extra gear finally. They got that power play. They built up some momentum. They didn't score on it, but they got a few opportunities. And then that absolutely ridiculous rush on the double redirect by Sanheim and Frost sneaks by Saros, and I'm like suddenly thinking to myself, how the hell is this game tied? 11 seconds left. Where is this team had no business being in this game. They were completely outplayed for about 80% of the game. But Alexei Kolosov, round of applause. He completely locked in after that second goal. He looked fantastic. And he looked like a man on a mission, not willing to lose this game. And then obviously the Couturier finish off that absolute filthy saucer pass from Konechny. That pass did not get talked about enough. That was an absolute drop dime of a saucer pass right on the Cout's stick for him to just tap.
Oh, yeah.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, it was.
I'm going to continue to rave about Konechny later on the show. I don't want to go too far into that. But, that's where I take the positive of that Vegas game. Even though they lost it, even though they kind of imploded at the end, they took the good play they had from that and found a way to win this game. I won't say they translated well, but they found a way to win it. And as you mentioned, Isaiah, it kind of made up for the Monday game. Eric, let me let you add on. What do you think of this game?
Yeah, no, that was just a completely shit game. Like, I'm sorry, that was just a shit game. Put that in the toilet and flush it away. Like, just terrible. Like, if there's one team in the league that probably has a worse center depth than the Flyers do, it's Nashville. You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, look, they added a couple good, like they added Stamkos and they added Marchessault and still a team that made the playoffs. But like Isaiah said, they're not gelling this year, and we
Oh,
got
yeah.
dominated by them. Like there was in the second, I think I don't remember if it was the second or the first period where they were literally in our zone for like over 2 minutes, like just cycling the puck against us, taking shots, and like we couldn't clear our zone for over 2 minutes against Nashville. Like we didn't even let Vegas do that to us the last game. So it's like it was just a weird game because you see them play so well against Vegas, like a team that won the cup just like a couple years ago, and then Nashville, who's what, like third or fourth loss in the league this year, and we get our asses handed to us by Nashville. Well, look, somehow we ended up getting the win in that one. So I guess it kind of made up for the Vegas game, but other than that, no, that's a throwaway game for me. Like, just put that in the rearview mirror and forget about it.
Honestly, truer words could not have been spoken. Then finally we move on to that Rangers game. And that game was one of the most satisfying games of the year. I'll lead this one off. So the first 5 minutes of the game was the best 5 minutes I've seen the Flyers play all year. In fact, that first period may have been the best first period they played all year, or best period in general they played all year. They looked like a team on a mission, skating absolute circles around them. The Rangers looked like they were stuck in freaking quicksand. Opening goal was an absolute filthy behind-the-back feed from Tyson Forrester. Bobby Brink, who deserves some praise because he looks like he's taken a step this year. He really looks like he's found an extra gear. He looks so much quicker this year. Ends up burying that shot to make it 1-0. Not too much later, Travis Konechny gets a feed, beats Igor 5-hole to make it 2-0. And they didn't take their foot off the gas because they know what this Rangers team is capable of. Even as bad as they've been lately, they know what they're capable of. And they kept hammering and hammering and hammering. The Rangers are lucky that game wasn't 5 or 6-0 after one. Because Igor made a few really big point-blank saves. He made another one on Bobby Brink. I think there was that. I don't know if that between the legs pass by Mitchkov was in the first. I think that was actually in the second. But Brink had a high-quality bid. Sanheim had a great bid. I think Adrane had a really good bid. And Igor just kept making stop after stop after stop. I felt like the Flyers had about a half dozen odd-man rushes that period. And second period moves along, and the Rangers started finding their game. They kind of saw it a little bit towards the end of the first. Rangers found their game. They did get one back in the second, but the Flyers still played a pretty good second period despite allowing a goal. Go on 2-1, and you're thinking, oh, God, this could be one of those games that the team ends up letting in a leaky one in a game they had no business losing. Third period comes along. The shots are almost even. The Rangers end up outshooting them 9-8 that period. But the quality of opportunities were limited. They really were. And at the end of the day, the Flyers just held strong. Kolosov made a few big saves. Zibanejad missed a flat-out empty net towards the end of the game when about 2 minutes to go. Flyers did catch a break there, I will say. But then Konechny buries the empty netter, who's now up to 29 points in 24 games this season. Awesome season he's having. I got to say, this team, that was one of, if not their best complete game effort all year. Maybe not the best, but it's definitely in the top 2 or 3 overall. Eric, let me hear your opinion on
it. Well, unfortunately, Canadian Thanksgiving was like a month ago, so I was actually working and did not watch the game. But no, but from what I've heard, like I said, like we dominated the Rangers, and look, the Rangers have been on the skids for the past few games, and I don't know what's happening with that team. But look, it's nice to hear that they played a very good game, and from what I saw, the numbers and everything, apparently Fedotov had made a couple really good saves late in the game to really keep them in the game. And like you said, like look, Zibanejad missed that wide open net at the end of the game. This guy's a guy that kills us every time, and he's a guy that's really been snake bitten so far this season. So yeah, no, look, we pulled out the win. It was closer than maybe it should have been, but you know what? it's a great effort by the Flyers.
They played a good game. They didn't, and I got to give them props for that. They deserve all of it. Isaiah, let me hear your opinion on it.
Yeah, I'd say it was the best effort of the year, and I think underlying in this game was the significance of the performance of Ivan Fedotov. I mean, there is under the radar a backup goalie competition that is brewing now. The two guys were kind of competing for who could be worse, who could give up more bad goals. Now, all of a sudden, it's kind of like the warming up to the task, right? And they're having conversations about Kim Dillabaugh. So I think that was very encouraging. He looks less lost. His tracking the puck and all that. But they came out. The Flyers are shot out of a cannon. The Rangers didn't look like a team that's on a skid and has players on their trade block like they're rumored. Although I think a lot of that is kind of pushing it out there to push the guys for motivation. And just a joy to watch. They were playing fast, and it just goes to show the Flyers do not have tons of team speed. They have individual players that can skate fast. Drysdale wasn't out there, so he's not there. Well, I like the comments earlier that Eric made about Bobby Brink, because it really has improved in that regard, unless it was you, Alex. But it's definitely something he's improved upon, along with his checking. And he was out there. That was his best game of the year. So much so that Torts, probably not a big Brink fan, saying, "Oh, this guy doesn't even know how to check." Now he's going, down to 180. But when you prove something to him, he'll point it out. So it was just a delight. And of course, they made their typical mistakes in the second period. So it was a bit of a nail biter, but they recovered. And again, a lot like Nashville. And this is something, it's like they took some good things offensively from the Vegas game. And we saw them today kind of being borne out against, in the Ranger game, I should say, yesterday. And the defensive zone coverage that was really good in the Nashville game, when they were allowing a lot of shots, but a lot more on the perimeter, not high danger. That was mostly true for the Rangers as well. And the Rangers are a more potent team, of course, with the Zibanejad chance notwithstanding. That's funny. You mentioned that Zibanejad chance reminded me of that Frost open net from the Vegas game. So again, another example of the breaks of the game going your way one way and one night and maybe not another. But it was really a pleasure, and I was very happy for Dotop, because it's been quite a ride, and it augurs well for them. Right now, after the Nashville game, they're at 500, right, and now they're above it. They're 11-10-3. And there's something to look forward to. A lot of the things that brought them to where they're at right now, they had to navigate with the clouds of last season and the problems and the reasons why they weren't doing well. It seems like through their play and the improvement internally, without having to go out and make trades, they've come to a point where they've addressed some of those things. And maybe that's something we'll expand upon later in the show.
Honestly, very good in-depth analysis, Isaiah. And like I said too, as we both have mentioned, Brink has taken that extra step. They building off of some things through prior games offensively. It's really good to see, especially with the way they started. And the backup goalie conversation hasn't been talked about enough as well. Like, Fedotov has made a complete 180, especially since that Tampa game. And it's absolutely awesome to see. Hopefully he can continue to build this. It looks like Kolosov is going to be starting tonight as we record this on a Saturday night. So we'll see what he can do. Maybe he can match Fedotov's effort from last game, or great performance in general. Jamey, how about you? Let me hear what you got to say.
See, I think Ivan, I'll have a different swing. I think Ivan played very well, but I think that was a complete team effort. I think that he didn't have to be overly busy. And I think that played his hand too. Not taking anything away from him. He made some really good saves, but I give the team in front of him a complete. That was an A+, absolute A+. That was the complete team effort that Torts has been looking for and hounding for the entire season. That was the game that was like a Torts could exhale and say, "Finally, from the heavens, they freaking listened to me." That was that game. So I give kudos to the 5 that were playing in front of Fedotov. I thought that they were absolutely phenomenal. They suffocated the Rangers. They only allowed with elite players that the Rangers have, to include an elite defenseman in Adam Fox. They only allowed 24 shots on that. That was it. Okay, the Zibanejad's open netter, of course, went wide, so I'll give him 25. But you know what? It was like we talked about. How many times have these fluky goals come to haunt the Flyers in the past? Like Joel Farabee about a month ago misses a wide open net. How many open nets has Joel Farabee missed? You know, how many open nets has Morgan Frost missed? You know, so how many open nets has Owen Tippett missed? So all that into one was like, okay, finally the curse hits the Rangers. That I just started laughing when he missed, because that's exactly what I was thinking. But overall, it was a complete team effort, complete team win, and the team should be pretty satisfied. And that's what makes me worried about tonight, is because when you get that type of effort against a quality of very, very good team as the Rangers, are they underperforming? Sure, to start the season. They have a game in hand on Philadelphia. I think it's one game, might be two on Philly at the moment for that wild card 1 spot. But nonetheless, when you beat an elite team like the Rangers, because they are elite, they have an elite coach too. I'm worried that they have a little bit of a downfall tonight. Not just because it's a back-to-back, but when you beat a very, very good team like that and suffocate them the way you do, I'm a little worried about tonight. I think Kolosov is really going to have a very, very, very good game in order for the Flyers to win tonight. And mind you, Jim Montgomery is now the coach of St. Louis, not Drew Bannister. They fired Drew about a week and a half ago. So that comes into play too. I think that maybe St. Louis has a little bit of fire to play for tonight. So honestly, I'm a little worried about tonight.
Tonight's game should be interesting for sure, but it's going to be, especially with the Flyers now playing 4 games in 6 nights too. They might be a little bit fatigued. 3rd game in 4 nights. And obviously you have the adrenaline rush of everything going on as well after having such a fantastic game against the Rangers. And St. Louis being well rested. But we'll see how that ends up going.
I'm just not a fan of the hockey schedule. I think it's brutal. I think it's absolutely insane that you come back from the Thanksgiving break, from the U.S. Thanksgiving break, I'll say, and then you play Friday, an early game, then you're supposed to play the next night. I don't understand. I'll never understand the scheduling aspect. It's just utter frustrations for me. And it's not because it's happening to Philly. This is happening to every team throughout the entire NHL. I think they need to do a better job of scheduling. I think it's absolutely brutal what they're doing.
Jamey hates back-to-backs.
I do. I'm not a fan. I think lower this season from 82 games to 66. But then you'll have owners and everybody in an uproar because that's money in their pockets. That's parking, and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm just not a fan of how this particular back-to-back has ended up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a First Nations tournament. It's compacted the whole schedule.
You know what? That's a good point too. That is a good point.
Yeah, like we used to do shows like every 10 days, every 2 weeks, and now we're doing it like every week. Like there's so much going on. There's so many storylines. So, I mean, you guys, I want to tell you. So, I mean, yeah, that's part of it too.
And it's also because the season starts later now. Because now with ESPN having the rights to the NHL because of the baseball, so they have to start the season later. Because before, if you remember, the season would always start like early October to like close to mid. Now it's starting almost like the 20th of October or something like that. So
yeah,
the 4 nations and everything, the schedules have become so condensed. It's crazy.
Did they start that late this year?
When was our first game this year?
October 15th.
11th.
Okay, sorry. But it used to start like...
I thought it was the 15th, but yeah, it might be the 11th. Maybe I'm incorrect.
It was the 11th. That was the Vancouver game.
Oh, okay, my bad.
But either way, it does feel like it is. They used to start maybe like the first couple of days off. They kind of pushed it back a week. So I think
a week,
you're not entirely wrong either.
No.
But anyway, let's move on. So we're at about a quarter of the way through the season. We are officially now past American Thanksgiving. And our Philadelphia Flyers are currently in a playoff spot. Who would have thought this about 2 weeks into the season when the team started 1-5-1 that we'd be looking at this team in the second wild card right now? Now they're only holding on to it via tie because they have one game less played over the Boston Bruins. But regardless, it's something to give props to. They're 9-4-2 since their 2-6-1 start. But anyway, now we're going to move on to our quarter season pros, 3 up, 3 down, pretty much. Our 3 MVPs, kind of, and 3 letdowns, I think is the best way to put it. But we're going to start with the positives because we're a positive show. We like everything positive here. Let's start with Mr. Positivity. Jamey, who are your top 3 MVPs going 3, 2, and 1 in that order?
Oh, man, this is a tough one. So number 3 are both backup goaltenders. I think that in years past, remember, it was only, about 3 or 4 years ago where the Flyers used 8 different goaltenders. You lose a goaltender, a starting netminder for close to a month with lower body injury. That's it for their season in years past, especially with the way Carter Hart was playing. I give full credits, and I say that because they have really come to full force here. And honestly, like, they have taken over the backup goaltending situation. There's a battle ensuing, but I got to give them their due because in years past, if the Flyers starting goaltender went down, I don't even know if Brian Elliott could have withstood, this for close to a month here that Sam Merson's been out, in total, maybe a month and a half in total, right? About a month and a half with both injuries combined, something of that nature, near about. That's it for the season. How many times have we seen that in years past with Philadelphia? So full marks to them. Number 2, I got to go with, this is going to be a combo here. This is Mitch Kopp and Sanheim. That it has to be a tie there as well because I just have a hard time figuring 3. Sanheim has played absolutely phenomenal. I don't think he gets enough credit. He's starting to get that credit with Torts. Torts has finally come out and saying it, but in terms of a national media, I don't think enough people are talking about how good Sanheim has been. And I know Philadelphia's numbers aren't the best. They're 7-2-2 in their last 11. And honestly, I don't know if they would be 7-2-2 without Travis Sanheim, the way he's played this year and suffocating. And his offensive game is starting to come around now as well, which makes him ever more dangerous. Mafi, I don't think anything needs to be said about him. He has overexceeded my expectations. I think he should be hovering around the 30-point mark right now. He should be battling for top for the lead scoring with Travis Konechny. I think that's how good he's been. He's overexceeded my expectations. My output for the season was 47. He's clearly, if he continues at this pace, he's definitely going to shatter that. Number 1 is I think it's probably going to be everyone's. I'd be highly surprised if Travis Konechny is at number 1. The guy has just answered his naysayers and said, "What'd you say about my contract? You said if I was a bust, I wouldn't outlive my contract. Are you saying this?" Each year, the kid, and I say that because he still is a young man, he has increased his point total almost every season. And you're looking at it. So a player of that caliber, if he could shatter and get like 80 or 90 points this year, and then say next year he gets 91, and then the following year, I mean, he's really taken his game to another level, not just on the ice, it's off the ice. He's become that leader off the ice. He's one that he's taken Mitch Kopp under his wing, that you see them talking and stuff, whether he understands what he's talking about. He looks like he understands what he's talking about. I mean, that's what he's done. He's taken these young kids and like, hey, ride with me. Watch what I do. Let me take you under my wing here. But I'd like to, an honorable mention, I will give to Sean Couturier. I really give him a lot of credit. He's really, really come around these past few weeks here, and I'm proud of him for sticking with it because he's been through so many injuries, and he's been banged up here every now and then. But I'll leave it at that.
Well said, Jamey. Well said. And Coots definitely deserves a little bit of props for the crap he's been going through. He had a rough start to the year, and he's really found his game since probably after that West Coast trip ended. Eric, let me kick it over to you. Who do you have as your top 3?
Well, first of all, I'm going with, like Jamey said, Ivan Fedotov. And because look, like Jamey said, same thing. Like, how many years have the Flyers had constant problems with their backup goaltender? And we lose our starter for a while, and it's like our team just goes through a downspin because of the fact that we can't get a save. And look, he started the season, he struggled. He really struggled to start the season, But like, look, I was just looking at it, and his stats minus like, look, he had those bad 3 first games of the season, his first 3 starts, but since then, the last 6 games, he has a 914 save percentage. So like, that's very good for a backup goaltender. If you can give you
especially
close
with
to
how
a
high scoring the
910,
league is this year.
that's
Oh, yeah.
almost like a starter right now in the league. A 910, you're looking at a starter and a good starter too. So that's definitely, and look, even Kolosov just now, like on the screen, I saw before his last 2 games, 1.98 goals against and a 917 save percentage in his last 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely the backup goaltenders have exceeded my expectations, especially with Fedotov's full start. So that's one area that I really think we're pretty confident. I'm pretty confident that we have like pretty much settled at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Second, I was trying to find who, but I'm just gonna say the Flyers defense in general because
Nice.
I was like, oh, do I go with Risto? Do I go with Sanheim? Do I go with Andre? But like they've all just really played super well this year. And even Drysdale's been hurt for a few games now, but even him, I thought his game was coming along really nicely. And look, Andre comes in, doesn't miss a beat, and Helge Grans, look, the kid comes in just from Lehigh Valley and at 22 years old, and he's holding up his own. So I don't know if that's a credit to Brad Shaw or the system or what, but like our defense in general has just been exceeding my expectations this year. Sanheim's taking it to a different level.
Mm-hmm.
There's talk of him making Team Canada, which honest wouldn't surprise me at all if he made the team. So I gotta go with the Flyers defense as my second choice. And my third choice, I was trying to find something that maybe like you guys wouldn't talk about. So I'm gonna say the Anthony Richard. Okay.
Holy smoke. Holy. Yo, that's great, man. Yo, Grinch, baby.
Yeah, you know what? He's too valuable for the NHL. So I can see.
No, but like, because how many times also, with goaltending, but how many times that we would call up like guys from the AHL and it would just be a bunch of plumbers or a bunch of like scrubs or just like fill in and whatever.
Plumber.
But you know what I mean? Like, and then we get this guy insane.
And that turkey grease has stuck my drain. My drain is now clogged from the dang turkey grease.
Call Tyler.
I need to call Elliot Desnoyers in the ASAP.
Yeah, don't forget the ass crack too.
Van de Velde, Lear, this guy, call them. They probably have some company going on right now. But who knows? So like,
I found a clip from this episode.
No, but like we have actually guys that could come up and actually produce and that could help out. Like if we have an injury, so like I'm going with Anthony Richard as my third exceeded expectations.
It's a fair point there.
That's awesome.
Isaiah, the floor is yours for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be so conventional, but yeah. So I think if we're going in ascending order here, I would say Sanheim is a guy who's kept his level and kind of taken it even to another point from last year. And his play speaks for itself, and he's their third leading scorer right now on top of everything else. And, we've had a lot of discussions about needing a number one defenseman. Maybe he's that guy. I don't know if I'm quite convinced just yet, but it's not a crazy conversation. It was even last year. I didn't quite believe it. Number two, I would say Matvei Michkov. The whole season really is about him, and we're building around him. Excuse me. And I think that it can't be, it's an underestimated thing at this point. As we look at now, we're starting to crunch the numbers. He's not that great 5-on-5, but the teams are going after him. The teams are worried about him, and there's a reason. So the Flyers, it's almost like he is the reason to be this year. That after losing and all the disappointment of last year, this season is about him and taking the next step with a player that they've talked about, that they've needed for so many years. And at least on special teams, on the power play, he's lifted their percentages by about 4 or 5 points. It's a little down lately, but overall, you see the creativity, even in what was not a great performance the other night when he has that back pass against the Rangers, and Forster just takes that shot that nobody else on the team would have created that chance. So I think the importance of him can't even be expressed by the numbers, even though with 8 goals and 9 assists and 17 points and 22 contests, that's still pretty darn good. And I think it still leads the rookie chase. Okay, so he'd be number 2. And unanimous, not even a thought. Travis Konechny is looking this year like not only an all-star, but a guy who could be a perennial 35, 40-plus goal scorer before the big deal even kicks in. He plays kind of a physical style. It worries me a little bit. I think of Mike Richards, but he takes better care of himself. He's a family man. And, going forward, I hope it works out. But right now, 13 and 16 for 29 points. He's their MVP. When he's not in the lineup, they're just not the same team. So that's how I would lay it out for you.
Oh, am I mute? Oh, that was weird. I'm going to be, I might just hit the fritz there for a sec, but I'm going to be pretty bland here as now. But I'm going to flip-flop a little. Number 3 is Mitchkov for me. My expectations for him are a little bit higher than Jamey. I had him at maybe the mid to high 50 points. I think I had him predicted at about 22 goals and 35 assists. And the passing has been everything I thought. His vision is ridiculous. The guy, as one of my Twitter followers, Derek, he's like a supercomputer. He registers plays before they open up. You feel like he creates one ridiculous opening opportunity per game at bare minimum. He's been absolutely clutch. He's got 2 overtime winners this year. He almost had a third the other night when he hit the post. I think it was against Vegas. He had a shootout winner as well that we're not even considering. 8 goals, 9 assists, majority of them being primary assists. He's played well defensively too. You know how Torts always is when talking about a guy willing to put his body on the line and sacrifice. He's never like cheating as much as people think. I mean, when you're an offensive talent, you need to cheat a little bit, but he back checks. He makes plays defensively too that don't get talked about enough. And then he finds the open guy when need be. That, as you mentioned, that between the leg pass to Tyson Forster in the Rangers game was absolutely ridiculous. He had another one early in the season against Calgary that didn't get potted with him and Luchenko. That was absolutely marvelous. And then there was the one the other night where Brink just missed the open net. We could go on and on about these opportunities that have been created, and his teammates just haven't finished, but he's been absolutely marvelous. Number 2 is Travis Sanheim, and he has been an absolute workhorse this year. He's been sound in his own end. He doesn't make stupid turnovers. He eats crazy minutes. There's been at least more than half the games I feel like this guy's put up over 28 minutes on the night. Whenever Torts needs him, he calls upon him. I feel like 3 out of the last 4 years, he's been a very good defenseman. He had one bad year 2 seasons ago. But other than that, Travis Sanheim has kicked it into another year. And it's crazy to think about. If we go back 2 summers ago, they almost traded this guy to St. Louis in that Torrey Krug deal. Thank God that fell apart, because you want to talk about what would have been a disaster if that didn't. But he has been absolutely marvelous. To piggyback again off of Isaiah, I don't know if I'm ready to fully commit to him being a long-term number 1, but he has played like a number 1 this year. He's putting up the points. I think he's got 5 goals. I think he's got about 17 total points. He's been balls to the wall so far this year, and I hope he can continue to play at this level. And number 1, I'm going to be boring and say Travis Konechny, but there's no one else to pick. It's Travis Konechny. He has been absolutely sensational. He's played fantastic whenever he's on the ice. He creates opportunities. His playmaking has taken a step forward this year. He continues to be that stud goal scorer. That's the thing about Konechny that stands out the most this year, is how much better he's seeing the ice, it seems like. He's making great, crisp passes that I don't think the Konechny of old would make, and he continues to find other legs into his game. You know, I was worried when they signed this contract. I was one of the guys that was kind of the naysayers and hesitant about giving him that type of deal. 8 years, $8.75 million. We'll see how it ages. Hopefully he continues to age like another Brad Marchand, which is exactly the style he plays like. And if you can get that, and a guy who continues to elevate his game, he looks like he's well on his way to his career high in points. maybe have his first ever point per game season, maybe even snip about 90 points. 29 points in 24 games this year, 13 goals, 16 assists. Every time he's on the ice, he seems like he's making an impactful play. He's been balls to the walls. It's Travis Konechny, and to give an honorable mention as well, Bobby Brink. I raved about him earlier in the show. He continues to make strides. He looks like he's taken another step into his game this year. He looks like a completely different player. I think Bobby Brink deserves some props. He makes it the Flyers' decision on what to do with the winger position of which guy they're going to probably end up having to move a lot more difficult now. Maybe Brink could have been that guy. Now, a few weeks after making the assumption myself he might be moved, I'm not so sure anymore. He looks like a guy who's really taken a step. Maybe they're more inclined to move a guy like Farabee instead. I don't know. But Brink, he deserves an honorable mention for how much his game has improved this year as well. Now the negatives. We don't like to talk about the negatives, so we kind of have to give our 3 downs. 3 downs. Isaiah, let me let you start this one.
Well, I don't know if I can put them in any particular order, but for me, it's Tyson Foerster, Owen Tippett, and it's a competition here, but I'm going to say Morgan Frost. And some people might say, wait a minute, what about, Jamey Drysdale? Well, I can't keep saying Jamey Drysdale is a reclamation project and he's going to be a rebuilt player. And we got to wait until game 60 until we kind of know which direction he's going to be in. And then I'm going to dump on him now. So I put him in a separate category. He obviously wasn't coached up the way he needed to be. I saw him taking some reps at the skate zone. I guess it was about 10 days ago, and some of the things they were working on. So I'm going to exclude him just yet because it's still a little early. But Tyson Foerster didn't really show much most of the year. He still hasn't improved his shot, and especially the quickness that he needs to get off that shot. He still has a little bit of a hitch, although I have seen on a couple of his goals in particular when he just let the shot go without trying to, have a hitch in his little, release, that he could do a better job. But we haven't seen a board play. We haven't seen a competitive level. We saw some of that on that shift in the Rangers game. I'm like, okay, that's the guy we're all excited about. We haven't seen enough of it. So notwithstanding what happened yesterday, he's been a big disappointment, Now, Owen Tippett is another guy that, he skates around a lot. He's a big body, but he doesn't play physical. He's probably the best physical specimen on the entire team. And he doesn't play to that. Now, I understand a guy has a certain kind of game, and he's more of a finesse game. But this guy is, if he doesn't start incorporating some of the power that he has in his game, he's not going to get the kind of prime chances. If he's going to hang out on the perimeter waiting for that special shot, and again, just like Foerster, he still is not quick enough on the release. And certainly the accuracy problem is astounding and galling to the fans at this point. Mm-hmm. He has got to get closer, play closer to the net. That means playing in the dirty areas more often. He's got to make some changes in his game. He's coming off of 27 and 28 goal seasons. I don't see that this year. Right now, he's 4 goals, 7 assists for 11 points. Whoop-de-doo. It's not good enough. And he's making money where he should, it would be a nice contract if he kept up on that 25 to 30 goal pace. Now, I'm just not seeing enough all across the board from him. He should be a catalyst, and he's got to make those changes in his game. Certainly the Flyers need that power forward. And then, Agreed. Of course, we come to more
And agreed. And, of course, as we criticize him, he scores a goal.
Right, of course. Well, I don't know anything. I have the game on DVR, so I know nothing. So anyway, right? That's my whole life. I don't know anything until I watch it. Morgan Frost is, to me, a guy who's 8 years post-draft. Mm-hmm. It's just a tease. Mm-hmm. It's the talent just really hasn't translated. And I think I know what it is. And I know why Tortorella doesn't really care for the player. And he said it, he's articulated it many times. And it's funny that this year, if you notice the comments with Tortorella, he's not going to coach him the same way this year as he has in the past. And to me, the way I interpreted that is that He's not going to treat him like a guy he's playing some mind games with, trying to motivate him. He's seen enough. Morgan knows what he has to do. And particularly, if I'm going to be critical, I should articulate what I'm talking about. He doesn't compete well enough along the boards. He doesn't operate well in space. He doesn't play often enough in dirty areas. If you're going to get to the dirty areas, be sneaky about it, like Briere used to be and Michkop. Michkop is smaller and not as strong quite yet as Morgan Frost is. He's older, so Frost is. So he's got to learn to do that, or he's just not going to make it. If they want him to play center and take advantage of those gifts, you got to have a little jam. And I think I'm at a point with him coming up on an RFA season. He's 25. He's going to be 26 soon enough. I don't think he has much of a future here. So they should keep Morgan Frost for now until something else better comes along. But to me, he is a big disappointment. I was hoping he would take 2 good half seasons prior to this and show a little more consistency. It's just not there yet.
Well said. Well said. The breakdown of that was perfect, especially on Morgan Frost's game, too. I couldn't agree more how he just doesn't seem like he plays in those dirty areas. And he doesn't seem like he has confidence in himself right now, too. I'll jump in next on this. So I was a little number 3 was a toughest spot for me. I was kind of weaning back and forth. Up until probably this week, I would have said Tyson Forster, but I'm going to take a step back. I think he has taken a little bit of improvement this last week. He looks like he's finding his game a little bit. His shot still needs to be better. I'll put him more of an honorable mention right now. My number 3, though, I have to say is Jamey Drysdale. He's now been looked at as something that Torts is saying that they need to completely refine his game. They've mentioned that in prior interviews. He wasn't coached up correctly, as Isaiah mentioned. This is a guy that, he was a former number 6 overall pick in 2020, and we're at the stage. He's 22 years old. I get it. Defensemen take longer to develop, to be fair here. So I'm not ready to give up on the guy, but I was hoping we'd see more from him this year. I thought he would have brought more of a boost. He needs to be more of a power play specialist where he brings a threatening point shot that we can all look at. He's quick, which is good. And I saw some things early last year that really brought me optimism. I remember this one game against Minnesota. There was a turnover late in the game, and he completely back-checked someone. I think it was either in the late third or overtime against a game in Minnesota. He made a phenomenal back-check on someone on a borderline breakaway to break up a play. And I want to see him bring that level of intensity more defensively, too. Uses skating to his advantage more. I feel like he's a guy that always hesitates when he wants to make a play. He gets nervous. He doesn't just make a play and simplifies things. He gets nervous and tries to do a little too much with a pass or even with a shot sometimes. He needs a little bit of that could come with some confidence, but a little bit of that could even come with just coaching, just in general. My number 2 disappointment is Morgan Frost. Consistency is the key with this guy. He, once again, just looks like a guy who cannot stick. He had a good game this week against Vegas, which is awesome to see. But we've seen this guy have plenty of good games in the past that lead to absolutely nothing long-term consistency-wise. And I thought this was the make or break year for the guy. He's 25. There's no more, you need, give this kid time, give him time. No, he's 25. You're at the stage of your career. You have to be something now or it's not going to work. And I agree with Isaiah, too. I think there's a real chance that this guy could be on the move. Me and Eric and Jamey have brought it up in prior shows. Me and Eric just did last week, actually, that we think there's a real chance he could be out of here maybe this off. I don't think he's going to be an in-season trade. I think he's more likely of an off-season trade. But if a move makes sense where you can potentially acquire a better center and move him as part of a package deal, go for it. But I don't see the realistic package where he ends up getting moved this year. But I don't know. It doesn't look like he's going to be here long term. He's had chances with Michkov that didn't stick. They put him on lines with Tippett and Konechny and Forster, and things just don't seem like they mesh with this guy at a consistent basis. And my number 1 is, speak of the devil, Owen Tippett. I thought this guy, at the beginning of the year, I picked Owen Tippett to lead this team in goals scored this year. I thought he was going to take that next step. I thought he was going to do what Konechny has done this year and take that next step into his game. I thought he'd be sniffing 35 goals, maybe more this year. I thought one of the things that they were going to work on with this guy was his consistent accuracy on net. He hits the plexiglass like it's going out of style. He misses so many shots, and it's so infuriating. I know this is a common theme with him that we can beat this dead horse all day, but he misses the net so much, and he shoots like he's a Nikita Kucherov or a Sidney Crosby or an Alex Ovechkin or a Sam Reinhart or someone like that who puts up goals consistently. And we look at that, and it's like, you need to pick your spots. You need to go for quality over quantity sometimes. I know Wayne Gretzky always said 100% of the shots you take don't go in. But it comes to a point where you miss this often. You're not shooting with bodies in front of that. You're shooting a shot from about 18 feet out that ends up going high and wide. It feels like things that we used to see on the Flyers power play back in the mid-2010s that we used to joke around with. But Owen Tippett, I need to see more from him. He needs to be a guy that shows me something. He needs to get in the dirty areas more, attack the net more, try to use your physical body more to your advantage, get some more greasy goals. Find a way to make that work. I need to see more from him. And an honorable mention, too, I love this guy, and it hurts for me to put him on there, but I feel like he's had a few rough games, and that's Nick Seeler. He's a shot blocking machine. I love Seals. I really do. But he's had a few games in recent memory that he has just looked rough, really rough, out of place, making mistakes in the defensive zone. Seals, I think, will be fine, but over the last couple of weeks, I've shown some level of concern for him. Eric, let's go to you. Who's your three downs?
Well, I guess it's gonna start sounding very repetitive, but yeah, I'm gonna name them all right away. Just my three guys are Farabee, Tippett, and Frost. Those are my three. Like, listen, Farabee's he's a 2-time 20-goal scorer. You saw the potential that he had when early on in his career, and even Claude Giroux, right? Claude Giroux was the one that said that you're gonna take the mantle from me one day. Mm-hmm. And look, he's put up some decent seasons, and look, he had the injury problems and COVID, whatever. But this year, I really thought he'd establish himself and go, not necessarily go off, but be a real contributor on this team. And so far, he's on pace for 10 goals this season, which is way off from his usual. And that's very concerning. And look, he's 24 years old, so there's still time. And but at the end of the day, he's been in the league since he was 19. So he may be young, but he's also kind of like a veteran. So I think he's really got to start stepping up his game, which I think he has a little bit. But the points need to start coming for him because his defensive game really hasn't developed as well as I thought it would. So if you're not producing points, then you got to be doing something else. And he's got to step it up. And look, Tippett too. Tippett also 25 years old, just got that big contract. And look, he's on pace. Him too. He's on pace for 14 goals this season. He has a 6.1 shooting percentage. Now, is it gonna? It could definitely turn around. Look, goal scorers, they go through sometimes they just have bad years. Goal scorers just sometimes have bad years. But like Isaiah said, I think he needs to start being more assertive. Use his size more. Crash, bang, get in front of the net, get in front of the goals, get some. Sometimes all it takes is one or two greasy goals, and then your game starts to turn around, And like you said, with missing the net, I think if I'm not mistaken, it was the Vegas game this last week. There was a play from I think it was Frost to Michkov, then right to Tippett in the slot. No one. He was wide open in the slot, and he just I don't know where that puck went. It went somewhere, but it didn't hit the net. That's for sure. So he's got to be better than that, man. Come on, buddy. That close, that with nobody in front. So that he's got to be better. And like we said, also Frost, this was his year to cement himself as at the very least a middle six center, but hopefully take that maybe become a top six center. You got Michkov this year that came in, so like you have talented players to play with. Like Konechny's having a hell of a year. Michkov is having a hell of a rookie season. So he's got guys to play with. But his biggest issue, like we've all said, is consistency. The guy is not consistent. What he could have a great game one game, the next game he's invisible. And like, look, to me, what he's proving this year, and I think I've said it before in this pod, he is a third line scoring center. That's what he is. For me, you put him on like a contending team as a third line center in more of a scoring third line, he'd be ideal because you know what? You're going against lesser competition. You're getting third, fourth line matchups. So and he could maybe use his skill like against lesser opponents. But you put him in your top six where he's going against the top line or the top two lines. The guy just doesn't have it. He just can't do it. So, and look, we need a top six center. And if Kuntz is going to be your two at the moment, and if you have Luchenko that's coming, that's most probably going to be another like middle six center. Then like, look, there's no spot for him right now, or at least not right now, but maybe going forward. And like we discussed, also, I'm open to anything with Frost, either trading him in season, off season, or look, we might have to extend him because we have no centers. But they have to make some kind of decision with the center position, and like he's not a top six center. So, and if we say that long term Couturier is your 3C, then he has no spot on this team.
Well said. Well said. I couldn't agree more, especially on Frost. And Jamey, the floor is yours. Our most optimistic member of the group is going to have to drop a little bit of negativity. Let's hear it.
My honorable mentions are Tippett and Drysdale, and I give Drysdale an honorable mention because I wrote over and over and over again that don't expect much from Jamey Drysdale until around February, March, just because he had major sports hernia surgery. If one can remember, there's 3 significant players that had major sports hernia surgeries, and it took them well over a season and a half. Kevin Hayes was a season and a half. Claude Giroux he had a half a season coupled with 2 months. He didn't start to play like himself until that February, and Shane got the spare. He didn't start playing like himself because he had hip and sports hernia surgery. He didn't start playing like himself until that March. So I give Drysdale, honestly, the whole year I was going to give him, a pass anyway. He was making those skates. The way he was skating was actually better than I thought he would. I thought he would really struggle skating because that's where the majority of your pressure comes from, is from the center mass, lower region there, where he really has to push off and give that oomph. So I was sort of surprised at how well he was skating before his injury. And Tippett, the reason I give Tippett a pass, it's not like I'm giving him a heavy pass here because I'm starting to get frustrated too. He just keeps missing the damn net. Like he doesn't realize how good. Torres hit the nail on the head. He doesn't realize how good of a player he can be if he really just hit the freaking net. How many times he reminds me of Jeff Carter, high and wide. The difference between him and Jeff Carter is that Carter would pop 40 to 41 goals still, where Owen Tippett now is like leveling off. He's not as good as Carter was. Carter would miss the net 9 times out of 10, but still find a way to pop one close to a goal game. Tippett's nowhere near that, and it's really disappointing and starting to become a little frustrating there in that realm. My bottom one is Joel Farabee. He has really disappointed me to no end. I'm really and I'm not saying he doesn't have the schemes to right the ship, because he does. He's playing a little better as of late. He's a little more involved. How he's been the past 2 or 3 weeks here, but still can't cash in. But I'm going to be honest, like Eric put it out there. He's on pace for 10 goals this year. He's on pace for what, 15, 20 assists. I mean, 25 points. That's well below his average of anywhere from 37 to 40 points. That's close to near half his point total down. That to me is a huge problem. Yes, he's playing well, on the defensive side of the puck. But if we're going to hold other players to the same standards, there's one player that is playing well to the defensive side of the puck, is Morgan Frost. But he's just not elevating his game offensively. But my second is Tyson Forster, because he's irritating to no end as well. I don't think he realizes what a shot release he actually has. Just shoot the freaking puck is what I keep saying. Every time I come, he's trying to find that little dandy, move there. He lacks confidence, is what I see. He's just uncertain whether he should take the shot or not. And I don't know if they're trying to we don't know what's going on behind the scenes in terms of coaching wise. I think that's a question I should ask him. I'm going to practice hopefully next week. If not, definitely the following week. And I'm going to talk to Tyson about that to see if he's coached that way, where just shoot the puck, hit the net, and make things happen, or is he trying to hone in on his shot? Because I see him pass up some opportunities. I'm like, ordinarily he has a first shot mentality, and that some of them he's passing up and making a pass to. And honestly, my number one is Morgan Frost. He's irritating to no end because he's so darn talented, and he just can't unlock that potential for some reason. He can't unlock the talent. And every time you see him make that great game, like the Vegas game, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Vegas, hopefully he follows it up against a bad Nashville team, and you don't see him. That's my problem, is that he's unnoticeable. You didn't even know he played in the game. Same thing with Tyson Forster. Both players, you didn't even hear their name. I'm going to be honest. I didn't hear their name called once. If you watch the games, and that's my problem. He disappears. It's like you could have that bad game like Joel Farabee does. You still hear his name, or you still hear Tippett's name. From time to time. Oh, here comes Tippett down the ice. Yeah, it's high and wide. At least he's making himself known. Whereas Frost just he disappears. He's like a ghost. Like you don't even know he's on the ice, and that's been his problem. Is like both everyone has said here, consistency. My problem is I think they're stuck with Morgan in a way to where he's lowered his value. Like, what do you get back in return? You know what you get back in return? You're getting a Peyton Krebs, who's a project player himself. You're getting back, maybe you might get another project player like Trevor Zegras, who is definitely underperforming. Those are the type players that you're going to get. I don't even think that teams, even if you coupled him with a package, because what can the Flyers realistically package, that becomes okay, appealing for a top six center. You know what I mean? Unless you're talking about you're giving up some really top prospects there, or your dandies that are lingering there with your 3 first-round picks. I don't think many people would want anybody off the active roster, and I think that's a conundrum that they have with Frost right now. I really do think that teams have come and gone, but I think that they don't realize what his value is yet. I don't. But they're going to get, you're going to get calls about Morgan Frost. I think an ideal team for him is the Chicago Blackhawks. I think that's perfect. I think the Buffalo Sabres are another team. People were talking about Cousins. I don't see them giving up Cousins for Frost. I sure wouldn't. I'd give up Peyton Krebs for Frost. I'd give up Trevor Zegras for Frost. And I think I stopped there, if I were teams, because he's going to be traded for a project type player. That's what I see being, the value of Frost, a project for a project. You're not going to get, unless you make it really lucrative, if you couple Bonk with that, then now we talk, or something of that nature. Or your top first round pick. Now we talk, but unless those two entities there are attached to Frost, I don't think you're not going to get very much straight up 1-for-1. It's just not going to happen. And it's a darn shame, because I really like Morgan. He's got a great family. And I root for the player because he is one of the classiest, kindest players. It's just a shame that his talent he has so much talent. And we see it with players from time to time, though, where they have so much talent. And you're like, what happened at the NHL level? He goes down to AHL, he would kill it. You know what I mean? He probably put up 90 to 100 points down there. But that's just I think the Flyers have what they know what they have in him. It's like Isaiah said. With Torts isn't going to coach him, because you know what? It is unfair. At this rate, he knows what he needs to do to stick in the lineup. If you don't do it, you're out. Goodbye.
It's, everyone's got an expiration date. Like, as we mentioned too, he's 25 years old. You're at the stage where you need to show something. And as you just mentioned, Jamey, Torts probably knows the same thing too, looking at this situation. Like, I know what I got on this guy at this point. It's put up or shut up time. And it looks like, unless there's something drastically changes over the next 3 quarters of the season, I don't know. I think we might be looking at his last year in orange and black. Anyway, that was a good breakdown for our pluses and minuses. Let's end it this. We got a couple games coming up this week. We got the St. Louis Blues game going as we speak. We're going to kind of skip that one because we talked about that one last week. So Flyers got a short week this week. They don't got too many games. After this Blues game, they got a bit of a 4 days off consecutively before they play again. They only got 2 games next week. Thursday at home against the Florida Panthers, and then Saturday in Boston, where they already wrap up their season series with the Boston Bruins. Something I hate the NHL scheduling format for because it's dumb in my opinion, but whatever. Yeah, argument for another day. So, Eric, I'll let you lead this off. Give me a prediction for the week. 2 games. Let's hear it.
Okay, so the Panthers on Thursday. So the Flyers will be pretty rested. Now the Panthers did hit a bit of a skid there lately, but now they seem to have righted their ship. They had a couple wins now. So I'm thinking, you know what? I think we beat the Panthers. I think we beat the Panthers. You know what? We played I was there in Florida when we played them last, and it was a really close game. So I'm expecting maybe the same. And you know what? Maybe this time, because we're at home, we'll get the victory. So I'm calling a win against the Panthers, and then Saturday against the Bruins.
In Boston.
Yeah, in Boston. Look, for whatever reason, Boston always has our number. So I'm thinking we lose this one, but in overtime.
Okay. 1-0 in 1 week, I wouldn't be upset with. Isaiah, the floor is yours. Let's hear your prediction for the week.
Okay. Well, Mr. Prediction, I'm not, but I think the Flyers are going to get a point out of the Panthers game and take a loss. And I think they're going to lose versus the Bruins in Boston. So I think they're only going to get 1 point out of a possible 4.
Gotcha. Jamey, how about you?
0-2, both regulation losses. And the reason I say that is because what worries me is just like what worries me about the NFL in terms of taking a week off. When they come back, they're a little sluggish. I see them playing the defending champs. I think I'd be more comfortable if, say, they finished this back to back and they played Wednesday as opposed to Friday. Because they play Friday, right? Isn't that what it is? Thursday.
Saturday.
That's 5 days off is too much. In my opinion, it's like having a week off for hockey. I think that's spells bad news. I see them getting routed, actually. I see them losing like 5-1 against that game. I see them having a letdown game there. I think what bodes well for him, I think probably Samuel Ersson should return that game. So maybe I'm wrong, but he might be a little sluggish too, coming back from his first game and trying to see some pucks. But Boston, for whatever reason, I think they lose 6-3 to Boston. Boston's one of those teams. It's just like they have your number. And here's of late, just Boston, it just has the Flyers number. I don't know why, but I think we go 0-2.
All right. I'll end it with this. For some whatever reason, the Flyers play well against this installment of the Panthers team since they've become a cup contender. I mean, they're the defending champs. They used to always kick the crap out of them. They were garbage, which they're not anymore, obviously. And they played them tough last year. I think they won 2 out of 3 games, both in Florida, and they lost their lone game in Philly. I'm going to say they win this game, but it's going to be an ugly one. I think it's going to be like a 5-4 shootout type game. I think they go down early, and I think that Torts style of play is they end up fighting back, getting a win, and somehow pull out a 5-4 win in overtime against the Panthers. And then the Bruins, listen, at Boston, matinee game, Saturday. We all know how this fucking script goes. They're going to get probably the dicks kicked in by the Bruins. I don't care if they have a new coach. I don't care if they're struggling. The Bruins, even though the Flyers did beat them in Boston in regulation for the first time in 13 years a few weeks ago, which is always nice to say because we never do that. But it's crazy to think about. But I think that game at Boston, they end up losing, I'm going to say 3-1. The Bruins, again, just have our number, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Looks like we lost Mr. Bascal, but it was good to have him on. Isaiah, thank you for joining. Everyone, give them a follow who watches us this week at O&B Puck. They have a podcast of their own. They're always a great watch. I've watched a couple episodes myself. Give them a follow, give them a like. Again, Isaiah, thank you for hopping on. Eric, thank you as well. Great show again. Anyone have any closing thoughts before we wrap things up?
Maybe just one last thing. I think maybe the Flyers should maybe consider next season. Next time they play the Blues at home, having like a Torrey Krug appreciation night. Because honestly,
point.
I think it would be fucking hilarious, and two, I'm like, just that trade not happening is probably one of the best things that happened to our team. Because even if we would have got that first round pick, I think if I'm not mistaken, it was in the late teens anyway. So, but yeah, that's my closing thought is Torrey Krug appreciation night next year against St. Louis at home.
Honestly, I'll start the GoFundMe for that. We'll raise money for it. Thank you, Torrey Krug. Isaiah, anything from you before we wrap things up?
No, just thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to come on, and it was a fun show. Appreciate
it, man. Always good having you on. Hope to have you on again real soon. But with that being said, that'll do it for another installment of Flyer Gonna Flyer, our quarter mark of the season installment. We'll be back next week. We'll talk again about some trades we couldn't quite get to this week, but we'll get back into the trade talks next week, go over next week's games, and we look forward to having you again, as always. But everyone, have a great weekend. Take care, and let's go Flyers.